vote, I mean, as of today, you're down to 12 members.
Correct.
Less representation for constituents. So I'm just wondering, do you have a date in mind that you would put forth a name and then call for a vote on that
The
name?
process is one where I put forth, that's always the case, that appointments by the council are nominated by the chair, and I intend to do that this month.
So when would you see a vote?
This month.
Before?
My intent this month.
And I
Home rule act
apologize,
is-
I'm not familiar with your calendar, but is there a second, you're not going to vote tomorrow, right?
Correct. And nothing's coming up tomorrow with regard to it.
So do you have a date specific that you would take the vote?
This month.
That's not a specific date.
Correct.
Am I missing something here? Or?
No, there's not a specific date.
And so you don't have you would have to call a special session
Of the council, yes.
to take that vote?
Yes.
Okay. And what can you tell us about the 29 people? Can you give us any names and any kind of, are they former council members? Are they independents? Are they people who would switch their party affiliation? What are you looking for? Are you looking for someone who is an independent by choice and not by convenience?
What I'm looking for is somebody who is knowledgeable about the government. I would like to say expert on budget, since that's the primary business that we will have, but it's kind of hard to find somebody who's an expert on a budget who's not currently on the council. I have thought about the value of somebody who is outside the government, like fresh and bold and a new face. On the other hand, somebody who's fresh and bold and new face doesn't have a lot of familiarity with the government. And so therefore, that's a challenge. Somebody who works well with other members of the council, that's important. I know that some members have said to me, well, should the person be somebody who's not going to run in the special election or will run in the special election? I think it's hard to pick a person solely on that basis. And the fact of the matter is somebody who says they're not interested in running in the special election could change their mind, and there can't be a prohibition on that. So there are a lot of different criteria that have been suggested outside the government, inside the government, won't run, will run, a true independent, or maybe that doesn't matter. I think in the end, what it comes down to is who the individual is.
I'm sorry, my last on this. Can you tell us what happens to his staff in the meantime?
I'm picking up his staff for several months. And that's been my practice with Councilmember Trayon White and Councilmember Jack Evans and Councilmember Vincent Orange, Councilmember Kwame Brown. I think I'm leaving somebody out of that list. And Councilmember Barry. Yeah. And so that gives them, I mean, it's not their, the public may not realize this, but council members are their own personnel authority for their staff. So when the council member is no longer on the council, the staff is technically unemployed instantly. And that's a bit unfair to the staff to give them time to look for other opportunities, but also there's a lot of work that's been done, particularly with regard to the committee. And so we need to continue with staff assistance on that. So they're all taken care of for the moment. You had a question?
Yes, Chairman. Would you consider potentially nominating a Republican in an effort to help with relations over on Capitol Hill?
I don't have an issue with that, but in the end, I'm interested in who the person is, the quality of the person.
Do you think it would make a difference, whichever party they're affiliated with, in terms of, the ongoing back and forth as it relates to home rule?
I would say minimally. I don't think that members of Congress are looking at the political makeup of the council other than to think just in the most general of terms that we're all Democrats and we're all crazy-eyed liberal left of left of left.
Explain procedurally the process. So whoever replaces McDuffie's seat, or not his seat, but whoever replaces this at-large seat, you mentioned a special election in June, so would they just serve until the next person is elected? And then would that person
Correct.
only serve until next January?
Correct. So we saw this with Councilmember Jack Evans, as I recall, and that is, remember, he resigned at the beginning of January, and there was a special election to fill his seat. Now, there was not an appointment by the council. That's the case with ward members. There's not an appointment by the council or by the party. So, but there was a special election. In this case, it would be in June, and that is to complete the term. So that would be through this calendar year. And then because the term is up this year, there will be an general election in November to choose who fills the seat for the next 4 years. So that's the possibility of 3 different people, theoretically. Martin.
So this is getting into the weeds, but following up on this idea of appointing a Republican. Do you know that you can? Because I think the way the law is written says specifically that the person that is appointed on an interim basis can't be registered with any party. Like they literally, it seems like the law would say that they have to be an independent. They can't be a Republican. They can't be state or green.
I guess I would need to double check that with our general counsel.
And then again, somewhat symbolically, but do you have anybody in mind to become council chair pro tempore? I mean, this is kind of like your symbolic second in command.
I haven't made that decision either. I have a lot of decisions I have to make this month. And I'll probably make them all at the same time because there'll have to be a council resolution. Jenny.
Hi. Yeah, more on this process because it's kind of interesting. Are you going to be conducting interviews of all 29 candidates, like reference checks? Can you just sort of, I guess, give us a little bit more insight into the process? It seems like because this is not an election, right, there are going to be a lot of questions about fairness and bias and sort of like your outsized role in this. And so I guess how are you thinking through that and kind of correcting for that in the process?
I'm thinking through it, but there's really not much I can do about it. So whoever I select to nominate is going to be unwanted by some people. And they're, of course, going to say that it was unfair. But if you think through what the alternative processes are, I mean, really to have like a public hearing where 29 people are brought forward, I think there are some of the 29 who are probably non-starters. And I have to be mindful that in the end, there have to be at least 7 votes for the individual. So that's a factor as well. For instance, I've not talked to colleagues about this, but you know, maybe for a majority of members, the idea of a Republican would be anathema. And so then that would probably not be a wise place for me to go. I don't think that's the case, but I'm just saying that in the end, what this comes down to is I'm going to select from the 29, recommend that person to members. As I said, I am talking to members, so I'll have some sense of where I'm going. And a majority of the council has to agree with who that person is. I mean, I think I said this already, maybe I didn't. I mean, I think if you just were having a conversation with just some folks, maybe not in DC, but in Poughkeepsie, about how to select the idea of somebody who's new, bold, fresh face, somebody who's not part of the establishment, that sounds pretty good. But then think about it. When I put forward John Doe, you all are going to be saying, who? Why that person? And of course, we don't really know much about that person because they are outside. And so there are trade-offs with however the process goes. So I expect that there will be charges of bias or that it wasn't an open process, but I think those alternatives are more difficult.
And how much are you weighting, like which part of the city a person is from, or what neighborhoods they have most experience with, like in the process?
It's definitely a consideration. But as I said, there are a number of different factors. Yeah.
Onto some other leadership
What?
makeup.
There's another issue?
Just talking about the new interim police chief, is there any, I don't know if you talked to other council members about the potential of making this a permanent position for interim chief Carol, or if there's been any discussions about that?
I have not talked about it with other members, which is kind of interesting, but this has all happened over the holidays. My own personal view is that the mayor needs to make a selection and submit that selection to the council for approval. The Confirmation Act, this is law that dates back decades, requires that a person cannot be appointed temporarily for more than 6 months. Why do we even create that question about the individual? I mean, the mayor's appointed on an interim basis, Jeffrey Carroll. I assume that's who she would like to see through the year. So rather than jeopardizing his status by not sending the nomination down after 6 months, just go forward with it. And frankly, I think that whoever is selected as the next chief ought to be selected with the idea of a longer service than just the calendar year 2026. We have seen the benefit in the police department, but other agencies, of a chief who's there for a long time. So short term is not good for public safety in the district.
Some other topics as well. Obviously, the big news over the weekend about Venezuela. I know the mayor and police have put out statements just about monitoring any safety concerns here in the district. I don't know if you've had any briefings or anything you can share about security and
I have not had any briefings. I think it makes sense that, of course, MPD would step up monitoring to see if there's any potential for some trouble or public safety issues in the district. Beyond that, this is an international matter, and even though I may have some personal views, I learned a long time ago that to stick to council business and international affairs is not council business. Come on over.
Okay to go second round. Is everyone?
Yes.
So we have several council members who are running for higher office. I know obviously that's something that's not new to the council, but can you talk about what are your hopes for the new year for the council and in terms of them being able to balance their campaigns with their duties as current council members?
Well, it's not new. We go through this every 2 years, and maybe not every 2 years where there are members who are looking to change seats. But I mean, we will get through it. John Wilson, former chair, referred to it as the silly season, and we will probably see some statements and posturing and maybe legislation, and possibly even votes that are affected by how an individual perceives that affects their campaign. Frankly, I don't think that voters are paying attention on such a micro scale. So that doesn't really make a difference in terms of a campaign. But, you know, we've been through it before. We'll just go through it again. I will say, because there's been a lot of talk about the turnover, it is possible that there could be 5 or 6 new seats, but not all at once. So with Councilmember McDuffie, we will see a change in the next few months. With council members Nadeau and Bonds, who've said they're not running for reelection, that change would be next January. If somebody who's an incumbent gets elected to a different office, mayor or congressional delegate, that change won't occur until roughly halfway through 2027. So not all of the changes are going to occur at once, but it is significant, the amount of change. We saw something like this in 1990, and I think again in 1998. 1990, we had a new mayor, new delegate, new chair of the council, and 2 or 3 new members of the council. So we've been through this before. Mr. Seagraves.
I'm wondering, and I apologize if you put a statement out on these recent actions by the president, but the takeover of the golf courses, I'm just wondering if you have concerns and if council may take any action along those lines. Also about the demolition of some historic structures on the federal portion of the St. E's campus.
Gosh, I'm unaware of the demolition on the East Campus. With regard to the golf courses, yes, I'm very concerned about it. For one thing, we, and I think I can speak for most, if not all members of the council, like the Links Trust and thought that they were a solution, a very good solution for the decline of the golf courses under the National Park Service. I don't know what the council can do because it's a federal agreement with Links Trust, not local. It's federal property. It's a federal action that has taken place. My understanding is that it's not my understanding. What I've been told is that the administration, federal administration, has acted in violation of a contract. And if that's true, then there's contract law that would be applicable. It's unfortunate that we see actions taken and then legally fixed later. That's just not a good way to do business. The overriding concern for me is that we want to see the golf courses improved. And what we've seen over the last several decades is just continued neglect and a decline, especially with the Rock Creek Golf Course. And is this a setback that just means another decade of poor conditions at least two of the golf courses? That's not in anybody's interest. There was a solution. The solution was moving toward improvement. That's what's in the public interest. Mr. Rice.
Yes, along those lines, do you know why the Freedom Plaza is closed off? And
well, the interesting thing is that I've not gotten a briefing on it. My understanding is it's one of the several parks or water features that is getting significant attention and improvement by the National Park Service. And it's my impression that this has to do with preparations for the 250th anniversary. It is a little striking that the entire Freedom Plaza is closed off. And it seems to me that's probably more than just the water fountain. But that's my understanding. It has to do with that.
The whole plaza is blocked off.
Well, if you listen to the news, you would know that there are like 7 water features, water parks with water features that are getting this significant upgrade. And it's about time.
And that's park.
That was a snarky comment. If you listen to the
Okay.
news, said that at a news conference.
And
Nobody laughed.
well, I'm laughing.
I have to work at this.
Do you plan to make any endorsements in all of these candidates that you just spoke about?
At the moment, I have no plans, but I will add that I have to be mindful that where colleagues are running for office, it might be most prudent for me to not be making endorsements. Yes.
If I can ask another clarification question on the soon-to-be-open at-large seat. When the vote does happen with the council, you had mentioned special session, will that be happening in the public?
Yes.
Okay. So the public will be able to hear. And my second question escaped my brain, so it will come back to me.
Yes. No, all of our legislative meetings are open to the public. And it's still the law that no action can be taken without it being in public.
Just quickly following up on that, when you present these possibilities, like if you pick a candidate and you want to present it to the rest of the council, will that be done in one of these administrative meetings that you can close to the public, or are you going to call individual council members personally? Selfishly asking, do we get in on the process?
Yeah, you probably can't get in on the process.
Not the process, but can we bear witness to you guys discussing this internally?
Well, at the moment, my expectation is that I have been talking to members and I will be talking to members, but not collectively, like get all 12 in a room. And so there will not be a collective discussion that you're missing.
And then just coming back on, it was mentioned the interim police chief. You talked about, the mayor should within 6 months nominate this person or a
I would
person to
say
be,
sooner.
or sooner. But again, the law says 6 months in theory. But again, there's obviously been multiple examples where agencies have been led by interim directors for much longer than 6 months. I mean, DFS has been run by an interim for 4 years, 5
Yeah.
years. But the council either doesn't have any authority to do anything or isn't doing anything. So is there anything
Might
you
be
can do?
more, it isn't doing anything.
How
And this
come?
gets down to the committee level and what committees are doing. So with the committee of the whole, which I chair, I do pay attention to this, and I have pushed for nominations to come to the council. I think the chief of police is in a different status than other agency directors. And what goes through my mind, I've not looked at the law, so I'm not giving an illegal opinion here, and I could be completely wrong, but just as we saw with some Federal Department of Justice indictments that were tossed out because the U.S. attorney had not been properly appointed, I don't want to see that could happen in the public safety context with the chief of police. I don't know that it would, but I think that the position of the chief of police is such, and the importance of public safety is such, and the fact that what the police do, among other things, is have a primary role in law enforcement and criminal prosecutions, that we want all the I's dotted and T's crossed. But there's also, I mean, there's nothing to be gained by putting off the confirmation. Jenny?
Have you met with interim chief Carroll since he's been appointed?
Actually, I have not. I expect I'll be meeting with him soon.
And I guess maybe this makes my follow-up question moot, but I know that concern among several council members towards the end of Chief Smith's tenure was about a lack of transparency about potential collaboration with ICE and joint patrols. What is your expectation for interim Chief Carroll on that specific question?
Well, my answer would not be specific to Chief Carroll. I think that there needs to be honesty with regard to what is the relationship or interaction between MPD and ICE. And when I say ICE, that would include Homeland Security investigations, all of the affiliated operations within the Federal Department of Homeland Security. There needs to be complete transparency. I said honesty with regard to that relationship or interactions. And our law is clear that when there is a valid judicial warrant, that of course the city will coordinate and work with federal law enforcement. So that's not specific to Chief Carroll. That's more broadly applicable to all police activities.
And as of right now, do you have a clear understanding of whether the Sanctuary Values Act was violated or not, has been violated or not over the last 6 months or so?
Oh, I think it has been violated, but during the surge, the federal surge, I think there was a valid legal question. What preempted what? I'm not sure I'm going to speculate there. I mean, I do know, and I think we've talked about this at previously, the incident outside DC Bilingual Public Charter School, which I'm sure was not the only incident, but there were complaints filed with the Office of Police Complaints about the role of MPD officers. Over the weekend, I had some correspondence with the Office of Police Complaints about those complaints. What is the status of them in the investigation? Which the answer is it's ongoing. No update there.
Can you clarify, in the coming days when the open at-large seat is open, who will be handling those affairs until the next person is voted on? Will that just be other at-large council members?
The So the Committee on Business Economic Development, I think that's what you're asking about?
Even just in general, any of their duties?
Well, let's start with constituent services. So Mr. McDuffie's constituent service staff was still employed, and they will still be handling constituent service matters that come to the office. That role probably will not be as robust over the next few months. In terms of the committee work, it depends on what the work is. So there's some bills that were marked up in December. I'll be presenting those tomorrow at the legislative meeting. And since I was not chairing or attending the markups in December, you maybe will enjoy me struggling through presenting them at the legislative meeting tomorrow, but I'll be presenting them. Other measures that were nearing completion have been referred to the committee as a whole, so I'll pick those up. That could change over time, those referrals. And then other measures, the work of the committee is going to largely cease. But I will be mindful of measures that need to be taken up. And if they're not in the committee as a whole, make sure that they're handled by another committee.
Staying on McDuffie, so is his seat vacant as of right now, or is today his technically
I
his last?
think technically, well, I think there are two vacancies. What do I mean by that? In terms of personnel authority, I'm taking over the personnel authority because the seat is vacant. In terms of the Board of Elections, they have to certify the vacancy.
He is no longer a council member as of today, right?
Yes.
Okay.
His letter of resignation was effective January 5th.
Okay, so if I could go back to Martin's point and maybe get a little bit more clarity for us. If you have any meetings with members of the council, majority of the council members to discuss this vacancy, would you notice those meetings, whether it's a breakfast meeting before the actual vote or something other than that? Would you notice those meetings to the public and make them open to the public?
I don't think there's going to be a meeting like that.
That wasn't my question.
Yeah, well, but I think that's my answer.
So you won't commit to having an open meeting?
I think that there will not be a meeting such as you're describing.
Okay, and then when you do make an announcement, will you do that, say publicly, like this forum where you would bring this person up with you, introduce them to the public at a public setting with press, where we would be able to ask this person a few questions and get some pictures and get to know this person?
Guy, when I say guy, that could be man or woman. Really, to bring them before you all, I hadn't thought it through, but possibly.
You don't think this person should face any public scrutiny whatsoever? That's not.
I think I'm playing with you, Mr. Seagraves.
Okay, well, you know how to push my buttons.
I've
sir.
not, yeah, well, if I can push them better, I will. I've not really thought that through, but I think what you're saying makes sense, that there would be a public announcement and an opportunity for a grilling by you friendly people. Yeah, ahead of the vote. I'll definitely, I'm not committing, but I think that's a good idea. It was all but.
And can you clarify McDuffie's staff, when they had released the press release announcing his resignation, that said his official last day serving was today. So are you saying today is not his last day?
My understanding is that it's effective today, the resignation. You're going to make me work. Yep.
You have not decided who you would make chair of that Economic Development Committee?
No, and probably the committee will be broken up. After 4,968 days of service, I hereby submit my resignation as a member of the Council of the District of Columbia, effective January 5th, 2026.
Former council member.
Correct. I have to say I marvel at counting the number of days.
So now that you just mentioned on the committee, you said you might break up the Business and Economic Development Committee and like split it up
Correct.
amongst.
Correct.
Okay. would you consider, I mean, well, one, I guess, Councilmember Felder does not have a chair, he's not
Correct.
chairing committee because, again, I guess it was his first year. Would he now be eligible to chair a committee? Is it second year that you guys traditionally give them, or is it after a 2-year
Well, it's a
cycle?
practice, and it's a practice that was followed by by former Chair Crop, former Chair Clark. That's what it is, a practice. And that is that a member is at least until the next, at least to the first council period. As I recall, when I was elected, I went through 2 council periods, my entire first term before and then I got a subcommittee. At the risk of saying too much, basically I have 3 choices. I could take the committee and give it to another individual. And depending on who the council member is, if they have a committee, then they would have to give that up. And that would create this cascading effect. I could take the Committee on Business and Economic Development and put it entirely in the Committee of the Whole. I actually have been lobbied to do that by several individuals. I'm not inclined to do that. And so the third option is to break it up. If there are no other questions, see you all tomorrow at 11 or the breakfast, which will be open, Mr. Seagraves. Nothing starts on time. They're open to the public. This is not like an event, a ticketed event where there's a start time. I didn't do any New Year's resolutions this year.